So in the olden days, which seems so simple now almost in retrospect, there was this whole idea that if you put a firewall around your network, you could secure yourself. And that was really built for an enterprise network. It was built for infrastructure. We learned subsequent to that that those walls were really permeable, and as a result of that, you really didn't have that protection you thought you had, and you had to have what some would term a defense in depth, which took you all the way inside your network, which really looked at behavior inside your network, and ultimately took us to data, as opposed to just thinking about the network as infrastructure. So as you move out now to mobile, it's an extension of all of what we've already learned, except that it's even more difficult because you're out in a wireless environment. You don't have that same infrastructure. You can be anywhere on the globe and yet be connected to a part of a network through ultimately into infrastructure. It's very difficult to secure handsets in the same way that you could secure a network. Much smaller, not as much room, power issues, the whole problem of something being small and not connected. So it's created yet a new dimension of problems that have to be taken into account. Should be expected. This is no big surprise, but our policy, our laws, the very global nature now of the extensibility of mobile computing capability requires really a global solution, in more so than it ever has even in the past. And I think those are some of the differences, those are some of the changes that we see as a result of mobile computing. And so we have a long ways to go. We have international protocols that have to be established and arrangements, not just for securing the network, but what do you do with someone who's abusing criminally the network, or stealing your identity, hacking into your network? What are the laws that go around all of this new environment? It's completely global, but yet we still, internal to ourselves in the United States, have to wrestle with these problems even nationally. Well, I tell people that this is, again, like living in a bad neighborhood. I think that with mobile devices, some of the revolutionary change has been all of these apps that people have access to, that in the flicker of a moment, you can add an app to your mobile phone. Where does that app come from? What do you really know about that app? Is it secure? And it's really incumbent upon the individual, not just some purveyor of a product, to accept or reject an application on the phone. Some of these apps will contaminate your phone. They'll contaminate your system. I think that's really a big new thing that we haven't experienced before. When we're sitting at our computer, at our desktop, and as we've come up through the Windows environment, and even back in the olden days of having our older sets of computers, we didn't think about those kinds of things. We didn't have all of those applications. We didn't have the access that we have to information, to games, to other kinds of things that change the way we do our business and our lives. I think that's the biggest dynamic change, and it's no mystery that somebody who wants to do harm to an individual or to an organization or even to the nation takes advantage of these kinds of new activities and new products or new solutions. And so we always have to stay one step ahead of the adversary when possible, or the bad guy. That's very, very hard to do when you're talking about a network that both government, industry, and individual users share. How do you do that in any type of an organized manner? And I think that is a challenge that is, again, in the nascent stages of really being able to be addressed coherently and collectively. Because it takes you all the way from an individual and what an individual does to a company who's in some line of business who might have a product in and of themselves, to then a larger corporation or a larger business who has an entire supply chain that they rely on in order to create a solution that they market either commercially or to the government, and to the government, which has to operate in this environment but also use commercial solutions. When you think about the magnitude of all of this, it's just huge. So how do we address that? Because technology is constantly changing, as well as a threat who takes advantage of technology that's changing.